But I had an experience, let's see, about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago. I had an experience, because I'm always looking at like different videos of teachings and all that kind of stuff, and always trying to like figure out what works best and what will help me the best, like spiritually.
Mm.
And just out of nowhere, something within me just kind of like made me be quiet, or made me just like stand aside somewhat from all the garbage. So it was really nice, but then it didn't last. And then I so anyway.
Yeah, but what you can take from that, so that's really beautiful that happened, is that what happens to you on the human level is there is a deeper knowing that freedom isn't found in things. It's a shift in perception. So even though you might know that intellectually, when you have these experiences, it becomes more imbued in the experience. Like there is knowing. Freedom isn't found in time. Freedom isn't found in achieving this or that, in maintaining a marriage or losing a marriage, or in getting lots of money or not. These are pleasures or pain, but there is something beyond that's free, no matter what's happening in life. And that's what these awakening experiences are about. It's like cracks in the seam. It's like gaps in the clouds, like seeing the sunlight. It's like, imagine if you were in a world where it was always cloudy and then there's a few moments where the light breaks through. So and then it's like, it's known, there's somewhere in you that knows this silence. Like silence is the nature of everything, or you could call it love, just because we've spoken about Ramana Maharshi, I'm speaking more like silence, but it's like love.
Right, yeah. And I've tried like the self, we talked about this before. Self-inquiry doesn't really work for me, and I've tried to go back and see if I can do it, and it doesn't. And I know there's a lot of really nice teachings on YouTube of a lot of his talks or whatever they are, and he does kind of explore other methods and stuff, but it just doesn't work. It
Yeah,
just
that's
doesn't.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I mean, I like, and we talked about Eckhart Tolle. I like his stuff. Osho, it, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like it's something that I have to like find, kind of, to
Mm.
just let it go, let it be more than anything. You know what
Mm.
I mean?
Mm. Mm.
It seems like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and if that's what works, and you might find you change as well. Like, so in a few years' time, there's something else that resonates more. But it's just whatever brings more of that deep rest in who you are. Like time isn't freedom. You're not going to find more freedom in the future. You always find the freedom now in what is. And I know
Yeah.
it sounds really contradictory because you're talking about practices to get yourself back to what
No.
is, but it's ultimately not contradictory. Like, so the body
No,
mind
that
is
makes.
like constantly swimming to try to get to something else. Like, you imagine it like a tadpole, like trying to get something
Yeah.
else, and it's like it's coming to see that you're totally imbued in that silence of what you are. There's nothing that separates you from it. It's just that the mind and the body believes that it did. It's like running, running, running. It's lost something. You haven't lost something. You're free as you are. This moment is free. That which is experiencing is free.
No, it makes total sense. It really does. It's kind of like bouncing between what's rational, what makes sense,
Yeah,
and then being being running in the moment and
yeah,
getting bombarded with stuff,
yeah,
like life or whatever. I love how you were addressing like the anger and the boundaries and all that kind of stuff, because that's been my experience. I had to learn how to get angry.
yeah,
When I first got sober, I had to learn, how to feel feelings,
yeah,
identify them, and then how to be a person. but assertive, not aggressive.
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah,
I
me
love that
too.
you talk about it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, before
I
when I
really
was
do.
younger, I only knew being passive and rage. So I had to, like, I would be passive and let people have what they wanted and listen to other people, and then eventually I'd go into a rage or into deep anger about it. And so I had to learn that as well, like being a like anger in its truest form is actually action. It's saying, no, this isn't okay, I want something else. But when we don't deal with that, then it builds into resentment, into rage, into fury, into like suppressed anger. It's like a boiling pot. It like builds up and builds up and builds up. And it's such a healthy process to go through someone, like working out what it is you want and what you don't want, and understanding that, and understanding why you have these build up or anger, or why you begin to cut off from your body or feel dead or get depressed. Another thing is that unexpressed anger can be depression as well. It can turn into
Yeah.
like apathy and like cutting off from sensation.
Yeah, because I had to, I, I started taking meds way back, like depression meds, and
Mm.
I took meds for about almost 20 years, and I haven't had to take them for about 15 now.
Yeah, that's
And I
great.
didn't know that that would come about, but it allowed me to like work on myself and to function in the world too.
Yeah.
And and then at some point I was able to like get up out of bed in the morning on a consistent basis. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it is repressed, and there's so much shit down inside,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
And this
But
is my thing. Like, I maybe sound sometimes anti-medication, but I'm not actually anti-medication. Like, I do see the benefits it can have. Like, I mean, like, I have issues with animal testing, like, and I also have issues with the medical industry in the sense that
oh yeah,
it's not holistic often. It's like just constantly treating the problem and not looking at the cause. But like from my experience, when somebody has depression and when it's really deep, it's unlikely they're going to get out of it through meditation, through exercise, or through changing their habits. They're going to need some sort of like booster serotonin or some sort of step to get to that. So they take meds for a period and then you slowly wean off it. So I also see, and also if somebody goes into psychosis, it can be really helpful as well. But it's like all things in this world. Like I do have issues with the medical industry from the testing on the animals and also from it not being holistic. But I also see it can be really great. If somebody's in immense pain, like morphine or painkillers, or having like horrendous like hormonal disbalance, it can be really helpful. And I think you're really right. That's my experience of working with people for such a long time now, is that often when you've fallen into great depths of despair and when your hormones are really unbalanced, you're producing like lots of fear or lots of cortisol, I think it's called. I'm not very good with it. Then
yeah.
these prescribed medications can really help balance that out. And then it can give you a balance where you can then, like if you're really depressed and you can't get out of bed every morning, how can you begin to go into therapy and try to deal with your shit? It's like it can
Yes.
help you, raise you out of that. So I'm so happy to hear your story, and thanks for sharing it with people, because
Yeah.
often people in the spiritual world are like, no, I mustn't do that. And sometimes I meet people and they're in such a bad state and they're trying to do it naturally or organically without any medication, and sometimes it's needed.
A lot of, yeah. And it's almost like a lot of times, like back to the anger thing, a lot of us get on this spiritual path and then think we need to be soft,
Yeah,
and that's such a
totally.
misinterpretation.
Yeah, I was like that too.
Yeah.
And it caused me, problems in my life. Like
Hmm.
anger is really important at defining a boundary. Most of the time, most people don't know what they want or don't want because they're disconnected from their body and they didn't have parents to teach. They didn't have parents that taught them how to negotiate with the outside world and getting what they want and they don't want. It doesn't mean you always have to get what you want or don't want, but it's about this negotiation, being able to express it and not repress it, and then it becoming a big explosion or becoming depression. So this is what I love about Western psychology, like going back to reawaken that. And sometimes when people get into this subject, they want to just skip all that out and go to the void of what Ramana Maharshi is speaking about. And more than likely that's not going to happen. More than likely they're going to have to balance the person to an extent, because they're their emotions and their feelings and their thoughts are so unbalanced that there's such a pull into thinking and into suffering that it will be an endlessly frustrating scenario to try to find the big self or to recognize consciousness, because they're so drawn into the personal self. I don't know if that made sense. I went off on one there.
Everything you say makes sense to me.
Nice.
So, like, one more thing. Are you familiar with Paul Hederman?
Yeah, I really like Paul Hederman, and I think he's great for people in recovery as well.
Yeah, because so now he has the non-dual, and then he has the AA related, but his AA related like weekly YouTube thing or whatever it is so it's so spiritual per se, or it's so linked to non-dualism, and it's beautiful because AA is really tremendously helpful, and it does help people get sober if they want to get sober, but this is a total like different like step away from the ego and all that kind of stuff. So anyone that's looking to get sober, it's a nice like supplement or alternative.
Yeah, so that's a big promotion for him, which is fantastic. I think he's on my website. I think I recommend him on my website because I've sent lots of people that way, because also people get into this subject. Sorry about Khaleesi. People get into this subject, but believe, and they get into this like idea that because everything's free, that they can still carry on abusing alcohol or abusing drugs, and when you begin to work with them and you work out that they're drinking all the time, or taking drugs all the time, or like doing really destructive things, like he's a great way to begin to step out of that or begin to look at a different possibility. Like, so because also I've found people use non-duality to try to say that's okay as well.
Yeah, I mean, I never really enjoyed his non-dual talks because it's kind of the same thing over and over, and that's why I like listening to you, because yours is so different. Yours is just so level and balanced, and I love it that you go on about the psychological. It's so needed. That's been my experience.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I appreciate you talking to me. I really do.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for saying that. And I think it's really important, and I think that they're perfectly complementary of each other. It's like the goal is to come back to like falling in love with what is, and there is the technique of moving the attention back to presence, but there's also the technique of exploring what is keeping you out of presence, like what is keeping the seeking game going. There is these two different methods, and as you become more balanced and they dissolve less, then you begin to see that there was never anyone doing that this was never a process through time. It was only apparently a process through time. But you don't need to jump to the end before you're finished. People want to jump to the end. Like, there's ultimately nobody doing it. There's nobody that's freeing themselves. There's nobody that's traveling this path. There is only what is. But there appears to be someone, and then there appears to be the disillusionment of that someone.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really crazy. And then there's just the falling back in love with what's actually happening, the simplicity of the feet touching the floor as you walk along, as the light streaming in the window, of the plant being green, of the door frame, of walking down the road, and the body has desires to do this or that, but it's very simple. Not the this or that, but just the freedom is in what's happening.
Yeah. And also thank you for like projecting yourself as this teacher that's found enlightenment per se, that's human, that does stuff and makes that's a real person, not this projected bullshit, like untouched. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I make mistakes, plenty of them. Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you go so someone
Yeah.
else might want to chat or however, but
Yeah.
it's always wonderful
Yeah,
talking to you.
lovely speaking to you, Dennis. Yeah, I really enjoy hearing from you every so often. It's lovely. Every so
Yeah.
often you pop up. Every couple of months you pop up again. It's lovely. Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, wishing you lots of love. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.